art has no rules. You have heard this a million times already, but how well did people actually explain this to you? Doesn't it seem a little paradoxical that we focus so much on improving our art and at the same time talk so often about how there are no rules at all? This is a topic that has confused me quite a bit in the past, so let's talk a little bit about it and hopefully we'll be able to clarify some ideas. It doesn't mean that anything that I'll say here is necessarily the truth, but it is my take on trying to kinda step on this middle ground between having rules and trying to improve in art and not getting extremely confused in the process. So without further ado, let's get into it. Before anything else though, I just want to say that if you like this kind of content and you think it's helpful for the art community, don't hesitate on liking this video and subscribing to the channel maybe. Maybe drop in a comment if you agree or disagree with me. And if you like this video, maybe you'll like the kind of thing that I'm writing for my book on art and life. The first chapter is free, so check it on this video's description. So yeah, what does it actually mean to have no rules in art? Well, the thing is, nothing is set in stone. This is a valuable idea for most things in life, but in art specifically, it is more well defined. Nothing set in stone, which means there is nobody that has any saying on what art should be or what it should not be. There are even specific types of art that some people don't consider art at all. Maybe you don't consider video games art, but I do. There is no one good definition on what art is, the same way there is a good definition on what science is. There is a whole methodology on how to make science research, for instance, but there is no fledged final word on what a method for making art should be and what this art product should even be. And the history of art shows us how this concept of beauty in art changes over time. If you take a close look on Van Gogh's paintings and compare it to the kind of painting that was usual and common at his time, you see why he was never famous while he was alive. Well, actually, he was kind of famous at like his last year of life, but he never really got to enjoy any products from his fame as he was already very ill at the moment that this started happening. And I quote him because he's usually taken as the father of expressionism. Other people were very influent on this kind of expressionist idea on art at his time, like Paul Gauguin, but his paintings were kinda deliberately chosen as a mark and as an example at his time of what art could be and not on what it was. Nowadays, the kind of ideas that his paintings were trying to provoke are not very unusual at all. We have abstract art, and even nowadays, even the idea of having art as an abstract form is not consensual. Some people would say that abstract art is not art at all, and we have that discourse of even my kid could do that. That's a talk for another day, but it is an important tangent for us here because it shows to us that there is no consensus on what art even is and on what it should be. So you should strive to get references, and getting taught how to do something is never wrong, really. But ultimately, each one of us should strive to define our own styles, methods, aesthetics, ideas, and tropes, because there is no saying on what these specific style, methods, aesthetics, ideas, and tropes should or could be. The sheer reason that you can do something differently is already a good answer on why you should do something differently. You have this capability, and art enables you to do that without any judgment. Of course, people might judge your art for what it is, but at the end of the day, what they say and what they think is no better than what you say and what you think. You should strive to make art that you think is good. And if you are afraid at all that your evaluation on what good art even is, you should not be afraid, because there's no such thing as good or bad art. We're going to talk more about that a little bit further in the video, but for now, just keep in mind that anything that you think and you deem as good in art is automatically a good answer already. And you should not be afraid to pursue what you think is pleasant in art. So we talked a little bit about what it means to say that there's no rules in art. But what does it not mean? Well, it doesn't mean that there is no concept of improvement. Subsets of art operate on a lot of predefined collective ideas of what some specific aesthetics are, of what is beautiful and what is not. These ideas might guide you, although they are also not set in stone. So whenever a collective of people have a specific idea on what is beautiful, you are going to be influenced by it. For instance, let's take visual arts as an example. There's a lot of very specific ideas that we have about color and composition and values, and those are kind of based on mathematical ideas. It doesn't mean that they are mathematical in their concept, it means that they are mathematical in their execution. So In our eyes, the relationship between red and blue is, well, technically defined by mathematical ideas. It doesn't mean, though, that these mathematical ideas are set in stone, because the way that they operate in art might change greatly. It depends more on abstract concepts that guide us socially than it does on specific mathematical equations. You can see that on music. What was considered something very dissonant in the past, in Baroque music for instance, is not dissonant at all in jazz. Matter of fact, I'm not a specialist, but with my very little knowledge that I have of jazz, I think that anything that sounds good in jazz is way more defined based on what comes next than what is playing in the moment. Like a good chord can be a very bad one if it doesn't lead anywhere, and vice versa. Something very dissonant can sound very beautiful in the right circumstances. In Baroque music, some chord extensions were never really used because they were considered dissonant altogether. Again, I'm not a specialist, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I think music is a good example on how mathematical ideas and relationships don't really define the wholeness of what beautiful even mean in art. It helps us identify and categorize things, but it doesn't explain them. So it doesn't mean that there is no value at all in critique. The fact there are no rules doesn't mean that people cannot critique and evaluate what you do in art. So at the end of the day, when we talk about how there are no rules in art, but at the same time we talk about these kind of skill levels differentiating different artists, I think that it is very productive to us to think about a scale not in terms of good and bad, telling you that someone's art is good or bad, but putting it in terms of how well executed that art is. So changing that scale from good and bad to well executed and badly executed. So what does it mean to our practice? Let's put it in practical terms. You have to understand what are the artistic ideas you're looking for and check how well you are executing them. This is how you define what is a good art for you and for the people that you're trying to reach. If you're making rap songs, those are very different from pop songs. The whole ideas, the tropes that people are used to in them are totally different. So the concepts that matter for you and that make that specific genre beautiful to you and most people around you who appreciate it are very different as well. You have to understand the concepts that guide a specific type of art and then understand what are the ideas that revolve around it and how good you are executing those ideas. What are those ideas? You will only know when you interact with art of that specific type. The bulk of art pieces on that specific genre, on that specific type of art, is representative of the beauty that comes out of it. Which means that any time that you think about the rules that guide a specific kind of art, you should not think it really as rules, but as tropes, things that we are used to in that specific type of art. It doesn't mean that you cannot break some of them. On the contrary, I think it is very interesting that you try and experiment around this genre or this type of art to see how far you can stretch that and seeing what things still look, sound, or feel beautiful. In the end, a great artist that does this all the time, which I love deeply, is JpBeatz. He does the kind of thing in his melodies and compositions that no one else really does in rap at the moment, at least not among the most well-known producers. Maybe you are the next JpBeatz, but you just don't have enough visibility, so I don't know you. But you get what I mean. He's one of a kind at his level. He dares to do the kind of thing that no one else really does around him. So when you think about something in your art, and you think how beautiful it can be, you have to see how well you are executing the ideas that you're looking for, given your skill level, of course. So you have to experiment a lot, see what sticks, because you never know when you will find something new and cool, and even change a little bit the scenario of that type of art. Who knows? So to wrap up, and this was kind of a shorter video I think, you should not be wary of what are the rules that dictate your type of art, that dictate on what art is and what makes it beautiful or not. What makes it beautiful is what makes it enjoyable. In your mind, you have specific ideas on different types of art and different artists, and they make you feel differently. Those are your inspirations, those are the people and the pieces that changed you as a person, as an artist, and you should take them as a guidance, not as people and things that has any kind of final saying on what art is or should be. There are no limits, but things in art are defined socially, so you're not going to change the whole game in a day, in a week, in 10 years or 100 years, but you're going to be part of it, always. and you should practice to improve the things that matter to the specific type of art and the kind of art that you are doing. It doesn't matter for you how anatomy works in real life if you are not interested in making anything related to the human figure. Different art types do interact between each other, and I'm not saying that learning anatomy would not be helpful to any other type of art. It probably would, but not in the way that makes your art more or less beautiful, because it will not change how well or how badly you execute what you're trying to do. At the end of the day, I think we should just feel good about ourselves and our art. If it is beautiful to us, it is probably in the right direction. And if in some days, weeks, or months you change ideas on what beauty even is, and your old pieces don't look as good anymore, you have evolved, you have changed as an artist. It doesn't mean that what you did was bad. It just means that you have improved in the concepts and the techniques that you are trying to improve, and it is a good thing. Because now those old pieces are not as well executed as the new ones, the specific concepts and techniques that you are trying to improve. So you are on the right direction. I think this is all that we should have in mind when we talk about this concept, and this is how we should think about it in practicality. I hope this was somewhat clarifying and helpful to you, and if it was not, I'm sorry for wasting your time. But even if this gave you some food for thought, I think it was already a successful video. Again, if you like this kind of content, don't hesitate on liking it, subscribe to the channel for more, and dropping a comment because it really helps me. Maybe hyping the video up. I didn't even know if the hype button is still on the side. Honestly, I don't see it as often anymore. Anyway, take care, and I'll see you here again next time. See ya.